Now that we've finally gotten our hands on the Kindred Fates Alpha, a burning question has been on my mind, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Who's next? Rob does state that through the Alpha and even into Beta, we'll be seeing more fighters enter the ring, and while I'm sure we won't see any new characters this year, 2021 is definitely going to be something to look forward to. That being said, this video aims to explore the various kinfolk that could potentially be making their way to the Alpha, and in doing such, I'll present an argument as to why certain characters are more likely than others. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, so during my interview with Rob on our Monster Taming and Chill podcast, he explained that it's their goal to not reveal too many more kinfolk before launch, as to provide a sense of wonder when playing the game for the first time. That being said, I did mention during the podcast that there are basically 20 kinfolk or so that have been revealed, which is plenty for the combat arena, and he seemed to agree. Now, because of this, my first assumption is that most, if not all, combat kinfolk will originate from the currently known kinfolk list. There may be an exception or two down the line, but I think that'll be the minority rather than the trend. I can pretty much guarantee that. Even still, we have a pretty good roster of kinfolk to go over, and I think the best way to guess who's most likely to come first would be to go over who's most likely to come last. Now, over on the Kindred Fates wiki, we see every kinfolk that has been revealed in one way or another. We also have the official media page on the Discord, which will help us determine who's already been rigged in some capacity as well. From this list, there are currently 4 kinfolk that we have yet to actually see models of, those being Nyazin, Gladius, Castrix, and Deerdog. These 4 kinfolk, in my opinion, are most likely going to be candidates for the beta and not the alpha. I think this because they've already been revealed in some capacity. There's not really a good reason why they wouldn't have at least shown us a model unless they weren't ready. Now, of course, I could be wrong, but if you look at something like Galvalant, we have seen him quite some time ago despite him not being in the alpha. Out of these 4, though, I'd say the most likely to perhaps have been rigged already, but they just haven't shown us, is Gladius, because it's part of that evolutionary line. So anyway, that gives us 13 other kinfolk to work with, and this is where things get more interesting. So I think we can break down the currently rigged kinfolk into 2 categories, the first being kinfolk that we've actually seen fight, and the second is the versa to that, kinfolk we've seen rendered but don't really do much. Now, I still believe that these non-fighting kinfolk are likely to come due to the lack of a water and air type in the alpha. However, I'm not so sure when that time will be. The kinfolk in question are, of course, Avian and Bakianawa. In Avian's case, we only really see it get wrecked, and in Bakianawa's case, we only ever see it swimming. We don't ever see it on land or partaking in any sort of combat whatsoever. Galvalant also sort of falls under this category because we've only ever seen it perform one attack, being the one I showed earlier. While it's hard to determine how far into development these kinfolk are, I'd say that either Avian or Bakianawa are the most likely to come first within this group. The final group of kinfolk are the ones that we've seen several animations and fight sequences for and are very likely to show up, and if anything, may not be in the game right now for balancing reasons as opposed to their actual progress. After subtracting the 7 alpha kinfolk for obvious reasons, we're left with Auburn, K-Knight, and Salamurder. Now, of these 3, we do see K-Knight the most given its multiple features in various videos, then Auburn, then Salamurder. What's even more interesting is that during our podcast, Rob basically stated that the main reason Auburn and K-Knight weren't included was due to balancing. Having 3 fire types could get out of hand quickly, especially if you want to use a Gaia type. That being said, it would make sense if K-Knight's also having issues with that main. We know that they've been complaining about that for quite some time, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to work on that in the meantime. The main we see in the trailers is not the final main. Salamurder is also interesting as we don't know its typing. It uses all dark type moves from what we've seen, but it's also seen coming out of the water, so a lot of people, including myself, just assume it's dark with perhaps a water lean, although if it is water with a dark lean, then this could actually take the water slot rather than Baki, and this might be easier to manage for the devs as well on a short-term basis at least. Now, there are also 2 honorable mentions here, being the Scarecrow and the Fire Shark, though these belong in the category with the other rigged but non-fighting monsters. But it was even hard to include them there because we see so little of them beyond these tiny snippets. So I wanted to mention them, but I don't think we'll even see them in beta, to be honest. Okay, so now that we have all the background information, who's coming next? Now, I'd honestly be inclined to say Auburn just because it seems to be fully rigged, and despite Gaia having another weakness, remember, Kindred Fates matchups are based on on playstyles rather than multipliers. I'd say Skullkin is a Slyphur counter, or at the very least a Slyphur check, and on the type chart, that's not really what we see. That's not really the point of it either. The type chart is more of a guide rather than a hard truth because there are no multipliers. Other than Auburn though, I could also see Avion making its way to the alpha sooner rather than later. From what Rob said during our podcast, it seems like the main reason it wasn't added as an initial member was due to tweaking its flying capabilities, perhaps for balancing or something to that effect. But I'm really curious to know what you guys think. This is honestly a great topic of discussion, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts in the comments section. Besides just who's next, also let me know which kinfolk you're most excited for to join the fray. My top picks are Canite, Castrix, and Deerdog in terms of who I'm most excited for, but honestly any new addition will be a great time. And so with all that being said, if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at GymLeaderEd. You can check out my Patreon if you want to help support the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.